12.1 officially launching on August 11th, and we just had what seems like it could be our final round of buffs for classes, okay? So here it is, after the buffs and everything that's gone down, one more tier list of the easiest and best DPS specs to main in Season 2. Let's check this one out here from the Comeback Kids.
When hopping into a new World of Warcraft season, it can always be daunting deciding what spec to play, whether it be because you took a break, you prefer to play different versions of WoW, or you're just looking to try World of Warcraft out and play in a low-stress environment. We're here to help. In today's video, we're going to be breaking down the easiest DPS specs you could main in Season 2 of Midnight WoW. This is going to be based on the skill level required to play the spec, the performance, and how well they're doing right now, and the design on if this class is fun at the moment as well. Starting off first with what could be overall the easiest and at least well-performing spec, we have the Beast Mastery Hunter. I'm going to say this up front, if you're a new player or simply don't have much skill in World of Warcraft and you want something that deals good damage for really not doing much work, Beast Mastery is simply the best.
With Beast I mean, it's the OG of like first ever character that you make in WoW. You know, that's what it is, really. Because the pet makes everything easier. Everything about playing with a pet in general makes the game, you survive a lot more, you do a lot more, it's easier to quest, easier to do a lot of things.
Best pick for you. It's definitely not by all means the flashiest class, but it's known for being the easiest in the game. Believe it or not, they simplified this spec even more. This expansion, they replaced multi-shot with their Wild Thrash ability, which feels great. It's nice and thematic. Beast Cleave has almost like a permanent uptime, so all of your kit just deals AoE damage, and from there you just use your barb shot to get your bleed rolling on your target, and then you use kill command on cooldown, and that's pretty much the entire rotation. It's pretty fluid, it's straightforward, back and forth between those 3 or 4 buttons, and it's very easy to understand. Pack Leader also looks like it's going to be the way to go this season. Your tier set bonuses look to be leaning toward that as well, and also your defensive capabilities are good enough on Beast Mastery where you don't just get one-shotted and fall over, which is nice as a ranged DPS. Not only that, of course, as Beast Mastery, solo content is practically trivial because of your pet, so things like Delves and Prey and potentially even Labyrinths coming up in the 0.5.
Oh yeah, I didn't even consider Labyrinths.
It's going to be really good, easy to perform in and dive into, which is very important if you like solo content. Listen,
yeah, if you don't know what Labyrinths are, they're like mega delves, multi-wing, takes you, like, you can go back to it every day for a week, you know, before resets. So clearing that thing, yeah, as a Beast Mastery Hunter, it probably would be easier.
It's no surprise here. If you clicked on this video, you're looking for a class that deals good damage. It's very straightforward. I would honestly say this is probably the best spec you can play in the game for that specific aspect. Beast Mastery Hunter is great for new players or players that are returning to WoW that haven't played in a while, that's just looking for something simple to clear some content and enjoy World of Warcraft with. Moving on next to what I think could be the star of the video, though, we have the Arms Warrior. Now, Arms Warrior has easily one of the more simple rotations in the game, and I gotta admit, on the PTR, this class is pumping.
Yeah, they're hitting hard.
Your AoE damage is phenomenal, building up those big cleaves and Colossus Smash paired with all your cooldowns with that Demolish in the Colossus hero talent tree. It's just incredible. All the abilities on Warrior right now feel very weighted and heavy like it did back in the day, and I really appreciate having like almost permanent uptime on my sweeping strikes, which makes your rotation straightforward as well. Now, I will say the single target boss damage on Arms isn't amazing in Mythic Plus, but if you pull a bunch of mobs into a boss, yeah, Arms Warrior is going to deal incredible.
I mean, let's be honest, single target damage, yeah, there's a, you know, it matters a little bit, but when it comes to Mythic Plus, the classes that always carry are the ones that do crazy AoE damage, because 90% of the shit you're doing in a Mythic Plus is going to be AoE fights.
Incredible cleave damage, and
so
you'll
if
be
you want to do
more
Mythic
than
Plus,
fine
it's
on
probably
Arms
a good
Warrior.
idea.
I also think Arms Warrior is one of the most satisfying specs you can play in Midnight Season 2. There are some build options out there for Slayer as well, so there's a decent amount of build variety, which I love. Personally, I love the whole Bladestorm focus Slayer build, which I think thematically is what
also
Arms
great
is all about.
animations.
Nevertheless, though, with the update buffs and changes to Arms over the last few months, and especially heading into the new season, I think this spec is doing amazing. It's a very straightforward melee DPS spec that you can pick up in literally just a few gameplay sessions. Your abilities deal a ton of damage. You're always wanting inside a melee cleave.
Those are high ratings.
Your battle shout and other utility. And we all know Warrior is one of the most iconic and straightforward classes in most RPGs. You're just a super muscular guy whipping out a giant two-handed weapon, swinging it around to deal big damage.
Yeah, also, if you ever want to try tanking, like, you know, and you play this as your main, being a prot warrior is like almost a guarantee. Like, you're pretty mid. Like, you're always pretty mid. You're never at the bottom of tanking. You're also kind of never really at the top of tanking in any given season. But you're always a decent tank, and people always trust a prot warrior for some reason. They're like Old Faithful. They're the OG of tanks. So if you're thinking about tanking maybe, but you're not sure if you're going to, and you want to play a DPS class, this is probably a good bet for you.
If that's what you're interested in, Arms is dominating and they fit the bill. Moving on next, you can't have an easy DPS spec.
No, this video is current. Yes, I know he showed the old tree, but this video is based on everything statistically post all the updates that went live
List to
on
main
the PTR.
without mentioning Retribution Paladin. The simplification of Ret Paladin over the last few expansions has done wonders for the spec and made it very easy to pick up, but also very enjoyable to play.
Like Ret Paladin, there's a reason it's the most played spec in the entire game. Most played spec always. Like it's almost guaranteed this is always the most popular spec in the game. It's because it's fun. It's fun and it does good numbers. And they always have cool ass transmog like this freaking one that you're looking at. I mean, the Judgment set, yeah. So if you do want to, one of the safest bets of all time is probably always Retribution Paladin.
You're a simple builder spender type of gameplay style where you have abilities that build holy power, and then you spend that holy power into powerful finishing abilities such as Divine Storm or Final Verdict. And as simple as it sounds, it's very satisfying. You, of course, also have your Wake of Ashes paired with your Avenging Wrath. And if you respec into Templar, you will also get the massive Hammer of Light ability combined with it at the end. And you're just crushing everything on such a short cooldown to where you're constantly getting those dopamine hits. The rotation, very simple, straightforward. Well, I think from a DPS perspective, that's very easy. They also have a little bit of a skill curve if you want to dive into Paladin a little bit. They have an incredible amount of utility with things like Blessing of Sacrifice, Blessing of Protection,
utility,
off-healing from your Word of Glories, Lay on Hands to instant full heal a party member.
Good survivability.
You bring a ton of utility to your party, so if you want to dive into them and really get the full value out of Retribution, there's a lot to be learned here. I think visually and thematically also Retribution Paladin takes the cake as one of the coolest classes.
Yeah, they do
all
cool
of WoW.
visuals.
You're an Avenger of Light that's all about retribution and bringing justice to evil and always upholding the truth and protecting all that is good. I'm not going to lie, this is a spec I could always find myself maining in World of Warcraft heading into a new season. Good build variety between both hero talent trees, straightforward rotation, excellent utility with good enough depth that makes you excited. And
very safe pick.
Moving on next to our very first caster
Warlock.
DPS, surprisingly, we have the Affliction Warlock. Now, believe it or not, this is one of the easiest range DPS specs in the game.
Really?
And I gotta admit, I've been maining this spec the last 6 months or so, and I'm having so much fun.
I didn't know
Heading into midnight,
easy.
They reworked the Affliction Warlock back to a full damage over time spec, and it's been loads of fun. You pretty much spread agony on as many enemies as possible, use your Haunt on a priority target, and then just spam Seed of Corruption while using Dark Harvest on cooldown. And that's like the majority of the rotation. You deal so much consistent DPS in an AoE setting that they're absolutely going to have some of the highest DPS throughout the entirety of the raid in this upcoming season.
So good for Mythic Plus too,
there is in that raid. The one weakness about Affliction is that their pure single target could be a bit below average, but you definitely make up for it with all the damage you deal to every other mob pack in the game. Not only that, as a Warlock, remember, you have access to your pets, which is incredibly useful for...
Yeah, it kind of same goes for like Beast Mastery Hunter. Same thing I said about that. Warlock, I mean, you got a pet. Affliction Warlock, you're going to be using your pets and stuff. Obviously, Demonology has the most pets out of them. But it makes all the content easier. So solo content stuff definitely made easier by having a pet. And then with the Warlocks, there's always that utility of like health stones and summoning portals and all that other shit that just like people like to bring you along because you just make life easier. So regardless of whether or not you're pumping or not, a lot of times they'll just keep you around because you can summon stuff.
Solo content. And also as a Warlock, you have the second best defensive toolkit in the game, being right behind Death Knight. You're incredibly tanky with all your defensives, and it's pretty close to impossible to die on an Affliction Warlock if you know what you're doing. They also made some excellent gameplay changes to some of their talents heading into the new season, giving them some more priority damage overall. So I think Affliction is in the best spot when it comes to the Warlock in general, and I think this is a spec that's going to have a lot of people surprised on how straightforward it actually is. The real kicker, though, I think, is how much damage it can deal in an AoE setting. I would say overall, if you're looking for a range caster DPS that's all about dark magic and they're just pumping out face-melting damage over time effects, the Affliction Warlock is straightforward
and like a good time.
Excellent heading into the new season. Moving on next, we also have to talk about the Balanced Druid. Now, I know it sounds shocking, but honestly,
I'm surprised the Chicken Boys are back. Yeah, Chicken Boys are back. One thing I will say about any Druid spec, obviously picking a Druid to main Is say you're going to be balanced, but you have so much variety. You got 4 specs. You can pick literally melee DPS, range DPS, healing, or tanking. So you have like every role covered. If you decide to switch it up. So, I mean, playing as a druid, yeah, you got every option available to you.
Is not that complicated at all. Not only that, I think this spec feels so much better heading into the new season. The rotation is very enjoyable in Mythic Plus, and because of how many cleave fights there are in the raid, I'm just going to put it plain and simple. The balanced druid's performance right now from a base standpoint is looking really good. The core rotation is simple. You want to make sure you have as many enemies afflicted with Moonfire and Sunfire as possible, and then you use your builders like Starfire or Wrath to generate Astral Power.
No, Shadow
and then
Priest
you
hasn't
dump
been
that
mentioned
Astral
yet.
Power on finishers. So from a core standpoint, simple builder spender spec that's been streamlined heading into the new season and feels really good. You have to understand the spec is pretty much built for Mythic Plus, and that's where I think they're going to truly shine this season.
Sure, all that
incredible
AoE
utility, fantastic animations that just have shooting stars coming down and crushing people. The specs,
I'm not going to lie, of all the freaking specs that exist in the game, Balanced Druid, always, their animations just cover the entire screen. I can't see shit when they're doing their stuff. It's just all those stars falling and everything. I have no idea what's going on. They just cover up everything else, which is, I mean, great for the druid, but bad for everybody else, I feel like.
Scales harder the more mobs you pull, and
Especially when
the
it's a big
pulls
pull.
gets. The damage is going to amp
blinded.
up out of control if you're in a good group. Your Eclipse state is the bread and butter of the class where you deal most of your damage in these windows. So you want to build up all your Astral Power, go into Eclipse, dump everything as fast as possible, and it's just going to flow really well. I think overall, Balanced Druid is a super fluid
9 out of
builder
10s across the
spec that I
board.
would say
He
feels
likes
the
them.
best in Mythic Plus. Their tier set this season is substantially better than most classes, and the spec shines harder and harder as your tank pulls more mobs. The visual and sound design is easily some of the best in the game, and I think Balance checks pretty much every box right now on a relatively easy class to play with numbers that look great heading into the new season. Moving on next to a spec that came out of nowhere,
Shaman.
we also have the Elemental Shaman.
Yeah, I figured
now,
one of the
devs
Shamans
made
would be on
drastic
here.
changes to Elemental heading into the new season where they took damage from
By the way, Shaman overall as a class, not just their specs, is like looking really good going into season 2. If I feel like all 3 of their specs are going to be good. So if you want to pick a safe bet, yeah, Shaman's a pretty safe one.
from their Ascendance window and put it into some of their more commonly used abilities like Chain Lightning, Lava Burst, and even their spenders like Earthquake and Elemental Blast. That combined with Elemental's new tier set bonus has completely changed this class from top to bottom in terms of performance because their numbers are just through the
all that
roof on the
lightning.
PTR right now. Not only that, as Elemental, you're not playing as Stormbringer right now, you're playing as Farseer, which gives you a lot more consistent
Farseer?
DPS and helps you way more
The
on
hell?
boss fights with all your ancestors active to help you in single target moments as well.
Must have
Elemental's
heard that.
rotation really isn't complicated. Once again, builder spender type of spec where you use your Flame Shock on cooldown to get instant AoE Lava Burst to deal good damage, and then you build as much Maelstrom as possible to then dump into your Farseer windows with Ancestral Swiftness, and then your ancestors just duplicate as many abilities as possible during that time. And it's a really smooth and satisfying way to play the spec. We all know that Elemental brings some of the most utility for a group in the game, so no matter what,
Yeah,
on
utility-wise,
Elemental
Shamans are
you're
great.
always going to be wanted and needed for group content. You have Bloodlust, all of your totems, including the Poison Cleansing totem, which is huge this season, your short cooldown kick, your Dispel, you name it. The Elemental Shaman brings it, and with all this being packaged up neatly into a class that's a simple builder
Looks
spender,
good. They got
they're
good
looking
updates.
good this season. I
Yeah.
think if you're looking for a class here that's always going to be needed and sought after to where you're never going to struggle to find groups, Elemental's probably the best spec in the game for this. Pairing that with the simple fact that their numbers are great and they're straightforward, yeah, Elemental's making the list.
Wow.
Moving on next, we have another range DPS,
Another hunter.
and it's going to be the Marksmanship Hunter. I'm going to make this one short and sweet. Right now, Marksmanship numbers are just extremely high right now, and the spec is performing very well. And if you're looking for a slower pace spec that is less about pressing a million buttons and more about landing fewer, harder hitting abilities, Marksmanship can be
I'd guess Marksmanship's probably better single target than Beast Mastery that we just looked at.
for you. The rotation is still very straightforward. You're alternating between abilities like Aim Shot, Multi-Shot, Rapid Fire, and the new and improved Explosive Shot, which works almost like this rolling, ticking chain of AoE explosions across the pack, which is nice. It is honestly getting a little bit ridiculous because at the end of the PTR dungeons right now, nearly half of your total damage can come from just Multi-Shot and Explosive Shot alone,
Damn.
which is kind of crazy. Now, whether you like this or not is going to come down to personal preference, but that is the state of marksmanship at the moment. A lot of players are currently running the Sentinel build, which focuses heavily on improving precise shots and multi-shot, especially after Blizzard buffed multi-shot into pretty much the stratosphere at this point. And because so much of your damage is coming from these very simple, reliable abilities, marksmanship is not asking you to perform some overly complicated setup to complete here. You're not juggling a million damage over time effects or managing pets. You're literally just pressing your simple rotation and dealing good damage.
Sounds like a good time.
The damage is immediate, the rotation's easy to understand, the range also makes it a little bit easier when it comes to mechanics and stuff like that. From a pure damage to difficulty standpoint, I think marksmanship is one of the easiest specs I would recommend right now. So if you're looking for a ranged DPS that's easy to learn, slower paced, I would say satisfying and currently capable of destroying Mythic Plus packs if you know what you're doing, Marksman is one of the best options heading into Season 2. Moving on next, we have the Unstoppable Necromancer of Death itself.
Unholy DK. I mean, you want a big DK this patch, this season? Yeah, Death Knight. I mean, right now, Unholy and Frost look like they're going to be like two of the best DPS specs in the game. They've been nerfed and buffed and played with so much, and one thing has remained consistent, at least with Unholy, they are going to pump the shit out of Season 2. And then Frost has joined the picture too. So, and then you got Blood DK, who recently got buffed too. So, that, I mean, as a tank spec, they're looking good. Death Knight, we might be in the age of Death Knight this next season. I'm just saying, unbiased opinion. I play Blood DK nonstop. Unbiased opinion, Death Knight might be the freaking spec that you want to play in Season 2.
The Unholy DK. This is a spec that has absolutely...
Would I ever go Unholy or Frost? I mean, that's how I started playing Death Knight. I started playing Death Knight as a Frost DK and enjoyed it a lot, but I really enjoy Blood. I can't imagine playing anything else right now.
Midnight Season 1, and right now it looks like it's going to do the exact same thing. Unholy has gone through a ton of numerical changes, and now that things are beginning to settle down, the base spec is looking strong, and the major improvements to the Sand Lane hero talent tree have brought Unholy right back into the conversation. At its core, Unholy is still a relatively straightforward builder spender spec, focused on summoning an army of undead minions, applying your festering wounds, and transforming your summon ghouls into Magus of the Dead that launch additional spells in an AoE fashion. The biggest difference I would say heading into Season 2 is that instead of being locked into the, passive Rider of the Apocalypse hero talent tree, it's looking like Sand Lane is going to be the preferred option. Really? In my opinion, it's considerably more interactive and enjoyable. Sand Lane gives Unholy a very powerful burst window roughly every 45 seconds. And it's quite similar to like Frost Death Knight in that your gameplay is built around these frequent like 1 minute go windows where you line everything up and just unload damage on enemies. Yeah. So if you enjoy massive burst every minute or so, definitely this spec can be for you. Blood Beast is also back in dealing strong cleave damage, while the main mechanic you need to pay attention to is maintaining and also maximizing your Blood Queen buff, which is nice. Once you understand how to maximize that, your damage is going to be very, very high and you're going to be off to the races. And just remember also, obviously, you're still a Death Knight. You're the tankiest class in the entire game and some of the best control available for any melee class. So overall, Unholy Death Knight, I think they check pretty much every box for the list. The core rotation is easy to understand. Sand Lane gives you a brand new, refreshing, I would say, damage profile. Your minions do a massive amount of work for you, and the numbers are looking excellent heading into Season 2. Moving on to our final spec, we have the Devour Demon Hunter. Still, yet again, heading into the new season, Devour has one of the most unique play styles in the game, and on paper, Devour is just an incredibly simple and straightforward spec, but I do think it takes a bit of practice to get down. From a core perspective, Devour is simply about ripping souls from your enemies.
I know that some of the changes that Blizzard put in place for Devour are supposed to eliminate the whole burst, like the constant dependence on crazy burst windows. They wanted to even out the DPS a little bit more and give you more kind of constant rotation to work through rather than it's time to unleash everything and then you sit and cool down hell for a little bit. So that those changes, I mean, they seem to be good. I mean, Devour is still considered to be one of the top DPSers going into Season 2. So we'll see how they play. But yeah, I guess they're on this list. So that means people should try it.
Absorbing them into yourself to then enter Void Metamorphosis to deal a ton of damage. Once you're in Void meta, you gain access to the hardest hitting ability in all of WoW, Collapsing Star. And the entire gimmick is that you want to stay inside of Void meta as long as possible because that's when you deal most of your damage with Collapsing Star. Not only that, every time you cast it, it increases the damage of your next Collapsing Star, meaning the longer you maintain your momentum,
better.
the more crazy your damage becomes. Now, Blizzard wanted to tone this down a little bit heading into Season 2, and while they did make some adjustments on increasing their damage outside of Void meta, Devour still has the identity of most of their damage being in Void Metamorphosis, which I think is actually a good call. Devour is just one of those specs that if it snowballs and you know what you're doing, it just gets out of control, and there's a reason why it was S+ tier all Season 1. I also think the fantasy and visuals of the spec is pretty much one of one. The spec feels like almost borderline evil, but in a good way. You're literally consuming enemy souls to fuel a void transformation that just has you drop nuclear collapsing stars on enemies' heads.
It's good fantasy.
That sounds insane to me. Overall, I think Devour is one of the most exciting specs on the PTR. I love the extra damage outside of void meta as well. And I would suspect that this very unique high skill ceiling spec is still going to dominate and be one of the best heading into Season 2. But okay, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to wrap up today's video on the easiest DPS specs you can main heading into Midnight Season 2 that are all very straightforward, performing well right now, have great design with hero talent trees and build variety, as well as also having a fantastic class theme and makes you feel like you're playing an RPG again. A lot more content coming soon. I want to thank you guys for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one. Peace. Hey everybody, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the content, consider subscribing or check out one of the videos you see on screen here to stay up to date on all things Warcraft. My name's Sky for the Comeback Kids. It's an absolute pleasure to make content for you all. I'll see you in the next one.
Yeah, nice video. Look, I agree with like all of these because we've gone through the changes. I've been reading these changes as they've gone. Obviously, this is just DPS. We're not including healers or tanks. If you want to play one of those, I mean, it looks like Protection Paladin's going to be the #1 tank, but Blood DK recently just got buffed a lot, so they could be a very fun one to play too. And then the rest of it really is like, yeah, okay, pick one of these DPS classes. If you want to play solo, I think that kind of goes into your decision. You should pick something with a pet-based class, so something like Beast Mastery or Affliction Warlock. One of those really, and then even soloing like as an Unholy DK, pretty damn easy. You're summoning tons of mobs, and you have really good survivability. But overall, fun factor and everything. I mean, people say Retribution Paladin's a lot of fun. For sure, people love it. That's why it's one of the most played classes in the game, or specs in the game. So a lot of them, all the ones I just mentioned are included on this list. So overall, good list. Nice update as we head into Season 2 from the Comeback Kids.